I truly regret saying such things at this age. After 65, 5 things you should keep a secret from your family. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. One that might make you a little uncomfortable. Have you ever said something in a moment of frustration or vulnerability that later made you think, I wish I had just kept that to myself? Not because it was untrue, but because it shifted the balance of your relationships in a way you never intended. You see, as we age, we accumulate wisdom, but we also accumulate regrets. And one of the greatest regrets people express in their later years is revealing too much, giving away pieces of themselves that should have remained sacred. Because contrary to popular belief, not everything needs to be shared. Not every thought, every worry, every burden should be handed over to those around you, even if they are family. There are things, 5 to be exact, that a wise person should learn to keep to themselves. And if you don't, well, you may find yourself in a position where you are no longer seen as strong, no longer respected, and perhaps even no longer truly heard. So let's walk through these 5 things. Not to deceive, but to preserve. Not to push others away, but to protect the dignity and peace that become more valuable than gold as you grow older. Regret is one of the heaviest burdens a person can carry. And as the years pass, it becomes even clearer how certain choices could have led to different outcomes. It's natural to want to express these regrets, to share them with family in the hope that doing so will bring relief or closure. However, unloading your deepest regrets onto your loved ones can have unintended consequences, ones that may harm your relationships and place an unnecessary emotional burden on those who care about you. When a parent or elder reveals their biggest regrets, particularly to their children, it can shift the way they see themselves. A father who confesses that he wishes he had pursued a different career may unknowingly cause his children to doubt their own career paths. A mother who expresses regret over a past relationship or a lost opportunity may make her children question whether their own lives were built on a foundation of mistakes. The weight of knowing that someone they admire has lived with such deep remorse can make them feel as if they are a product of failure rather than love. Furthermore, dwelling on the past too openly can take away from the present. When someone constantly speaks about what could have been, it creates an atmosphere of sadness and longing rather than appreciation for what still remains. Family members may start to feel as though their presence is not enough to bring joy, or that their efforts to support and care for their aging loved one are being overshadowed by unresolved pain. Instead of strengthening bonds, excessive sharing of regrets can build walls, making conversations feel heavier than they need to be. There's also the risk of shifting from reflection to bitterness. Expressing regret should ideally be an act of learning and growth, but when it turns into repeated conversations about disappointment, it can cause strain. Family members may begin to withdraw, not because they don't care, but because they feel powerless to change the past. This can lead to a sense of emotional exhaustion where interactions become dominated by sorrow instead of meaningful connection. It's not that these thoughts should never be acknowledged, but there is wisdom in knowing when to speak and when to keep certain reflections private. Instead of burdening loved ones with regrets, focusing on the lessons learned and guiding them toward a better future is a far more powerful and constructive way to share wisdom. Financial matters are deeply personal, and while honesty is important, there is a fine line between transparency and oversharing. Revealing too much about your financial situation, whether it's struggles or success, can create unnecessary complications within a family. Money has a unique way of altering relationships, often in ways that people don't anticipate. What seems like an innocent conversation about financial difficulties or wealth can subtly shift how others perceive you, and in some cases, it can even lead to unintended consequences that strain family dynamics. Discussing financial hardships too openly can cause undue stress and worry among family members. Children, no matter their age, may feel obligated to help or carry the burden of their parents' struggles, sometimes at the expense of their own well-being. A grown child who hears repeated concerns about money might begin making financial sacrifices to assist, even when they can't afford to. Over time, this can create resentment, not because they don't care, but because they may feel trapped between their own responsibilities and the expectation to support their parents. The weight of financial distress, when constantly vocalized, can shift the nature of the relationship from one built on love and respect to one overshadowed by obligation and guilt. On the other hand, revealing too much about financial success can also bring unexpected challenges. Family members may develop a sense of entitlement, assuming that because you are well off, they are owed assistance or inheritance. This can weaken their own sense of independence, as they may begin relying on the idea that they will be taken care of, rather than building their own financial stability. It can also create tensions between siblings or extended family, where comparisons and expectations lead to disputes and jealousy. Beyond that, sharing financial details too freely can lead to a shift in how others treat you. The moment money becomes a frequent topic of conversation, relationships can take on a transactional nature. Instead of seeing you for the person you are, family members may begin to see you as a source of financial support, or, in the case of struggles, as a burden. Both scenarios erode genuine connection. There is wisdom in discretion. Managing financial discussions carefully ensures that relationships remain built on love, respect, and mutual understanding rather than financial dependency or emotional burden. It is often better to provide guidance and wisdom about money rather than reveal every detail of your own financial reality. Family relationships are complex, and personal opinions about certain family members can be just as complicated. It might seem natural to express your true thoughts about someone within the family, especially when emotions are high or frustrations build up over time. However, openly sharing your unfiltered opinions, particularly negative ones, can have lasting consequences that extend far beyond the initial conversation. Words once spoken cannot be taken back, and they have the power to reshape relationships in ways that are difficult to repair. One of the biggest risks in voicing strong opinions about a family member is the division it can create. If a parent expresses disappointment in a son-in-law or frustration with a daughter's choices, that sentiment does not simply disappear once it is said. Instead, it lingers, influencing how relationships develop moving forward. The child hearing these words may feel caught in the middle, torn between loyalty to their spouse or their parent. What was meant as an honest expression of feeling can quickly become the seed of resentment, making family gatherings tense and interactions strained. There's also the danger of misinterpretation. No matter how carefully one tries to frame their opinion, people tend to hear things through the filter of their own emotions and experiences. A simple comment about someone's lifestyle, parenting style, or financial decisions can be taken as judgment rather than observation. Over time, repeated criticisms, whether direct or subtle, can erode trust. Family members may begin to distance themselves, not out of a lack of love, but as a way to protect their own emotional well-being. Another important consideration is how opinions can influence others. Sharing a negative view about a sibling, cousin, or in-law can shape the way others in the family see that person, sometimes unfairly. Personal grievances become shared perceptions, and soon division spreads beyond the original conflict. What might have been a personal frustration becomes a wider family issue, creating unnecessary drama and lasting rifts. Choosing to withhold certain opinions is not about dishonesty. It's about wisdom. Relationships require careful navigation, and not every thought needs to be spoken aloud. Respecting the complexity of family dynamics means understanding that while honesty is valuable, restraint is often more powerful. Maintaining harmony does not mean pretending everything is perfect, but rather knowing when to step back and let time, rather than words, shape the course of relationships. Health is a deeply personal matter, and as people age, it naturally becomes a more frequent topic of conversation. It is understandable to want to share concerns with family, especially when facing difficulties. But there is a fine balance between keeping loved ones informed and overwhelming them with constant discussion of ailments. While it is important to communicate major health issues when necessary, making health the central topic of conversations can shift the way family members see and interact with you. One of the unintended consequences of frequently talking about health problems is that it can change the relationship dynamic from one of respect to one of pity. Instead of being seen as the strong and wise figure you have always been, you may start being viewed primarily through the lens of illness or frailty. This shift can lead to family members treating you differently, not out of malice, but out of concern. Conversations may become less about shared experiences and more about checking in on symptoms, medications, and doctor visits. While their intentions may be good, This can create a sense of isolation as your identity becomes increasingly tied to your health rather than to who you are as a person. Another issue is the emotional burden placed on loved ones. While family members want to support and care for one another, constantly voicing every ache, pain, or medical concern can create an atmosphere of worry and helplessness. Children, in particular, may begin to feel guilty for not being able to fix the situation, and this guilt can lead to stress or even avoidance. No one wants to feel powerless when it comes to the well-being of a loved one, and when health concerns dominate discussions, interactions may become strained as family members struggle with their own emotional responses. Additionally, there is a psychological aspect to how health is perceived. Focusing too much on illness can reinforce a mindset of decline, making it harder to stay mentally and emotionally strong. The way we speak about ourselves influences how we feel, and constantly verbalizing physical struggles can make them feel even more overwhelming. This in turn can impact not only personal well-being, but also the way others interact, as they may start assuming fragility even in moments when strength is still present. Sharing health concerns should be done with intention, focusing on what is truly necessary rather than making it a recurring theme. By maintaining a sense of dignity and balance in these discussions, relationships remain centered on meaningful connections rather than being overshadowed by illness. Fear is a natural part of life, especially as people grow older and face uncertainties about the future. It is tempting to share these fears with family, hoping for reassurance or comfort, but doing so too frequently or too openly can have unintended consequences. While expressing concerns is understandable, constantly voicing deep anxieties about aging, loneliness, or the state of the world can create unnecessary worry and place an emotional burden on loved ones. One of the dangers of openly sharing fears about the future is that it can instill a sense of helplessness in those who care about you. Family members, especially children, want to see their elders as sources of wisdom and stability. When they hear repeated expressions of fear, whether about declining health, financial insecurity, or being alone, they may feel powerless to provide any real solutions. This sense of helplessness can lead to guilt, stress, and even frustration, as they struggle to balance their own responsibilities while feeling an unspoken obligation to ease your worries. Instead of creating stronger bonds, this dynamic can result in emotional exhaustion, where family members begin to withdraw because they feel they can never offer enough comfort. Another risk is that excessive focus on fears can influence how others perceive and interact with you. If you constantly talk about being afraid of the future, people may start treating you as fragile, overly cautious, or even incapable of handling challenges on your own. This can lead to well-meaning but limiting behaviors, such as family members making decisions for you rather than with you. Over time, this can erode your sense of independence and dignity, making you feel less in control of your own life. Fear is also contagious. When voiced repeatedly, it does not just affect the person expressing it, it spreads to those who hear it. A parent who frequently talks about their fear of being abandoned may unknowingly make their children question their own life choices, feeling torn between their personal goals and the need to provide constant reassurance. Similarly, speaking often about fears related to the world's future can create unnecessary anxiety in younger generations, making them feel uncertain or discouraged about their own path. Managing fears internally or expressing them in a measured way allows for a more balanced and peaceful life. Strength comes not from ignoring fear, but from refusing to let it dominate interactions. By focusing on the present and maintaining a sense of resilience, relationships remain rooted in warmth and connection rather than in anxiety and worry.